Hello, Lloyd Moyer here. Um, Today I have a piece of ash that I cut and rough turned a couple of weeks ago, and it's been sitting in some shavings ever since. It's still pretty wet, but I thought I would turn it and see what happened to it when it worked. I feel like I've been doing a lot of that lately. It's something I'm enjoying. So we're gonna try it with a slightly larger piece of ash here, and we'll see how we go. Thanks for watching. When I first rough turned this piece, I turned a recess um, into the inside so that I can put it on the chuck um, and turn the outside. So really, all I have to do is basically hang this on the chuck and then tighten it. And I'm expanding the chuck here. First thing I want to do is to true up the bottom and cut my foot. I'm going to start this with my spindle gouge. This is just a pull cut that I'm doing on with a shear cut, and then I can go back towards the middle if I need to, although I really don't need to here. So first I'm just truing this up. Then I'll get my calipers. These are already set to the diameter of the chuck. And what I'm trying to do is make a scratch on the left-hand side, on this side, that lines up with this side. Very, very important not to touch this side to the wood because it'll catch and smack over at you. While I'm lined up here, I'm going to take my lined up on the face here. I'm going to give it a little bit of a scrape also, and this is just my skewed scraper that I use on the outside of my bowls. And you see it's cut at a skewed shape. It just makes it easier to get a consistent cut because I'm not lined up straight on it. It also makes it so that I can do a shear cut with it, which I don't really want to demonstrate on the bottom. And it also is cut, you'll notice, very slightly rounded. And I'm just cutting this indentation into the middle so that I don't have to worry about it even as it warps. It's not gonna end up trying to sit on the very center. Plus, it looks cool. Now, if I do a shear cut, and that's with the lower end of the scraper, that usually gets me a half decent surface. Ash is sometimes temperamental. Ash finishes beautifully, but it sometimes makes you work for it. Actually, one of the reasons I really enjoy turning ash is because it does make you work for it. So again, I'm just going to double check the diameter. It's just a little bit wide, so I'm in good shape. The foot doesn't necessarily have to be dovetailed, but you really don't want it to be, you want it to be at least cylindrical. Okay, good. There's my foot, and now I'm just going to true up the rest of the outside. And I think I'm going to do that. This is a larger piece, so I'm going to switch to my bowl gouge. And I'm going in around 960 RPMs. And again, I'm just truing up. So again, I'm doing that with a pull cut and a shear pull cut, I guess you might call it. Not entirely sure what kind of shape I want this bowl to have. It's about maybe 13 inches in diameter, but it's relatively shallow. And it is going to warp. I don't know. I don't know just what I want to do with it yet. I'm going to have this as a bead here. So it'll be on a little bit of a foot. Actually, I'm going to go back to my spindle gouge for that part. So I'm seeing right here there's a crack that's developed. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn at least some of that away. I'm going to turn this down, and this bead will then become my foot. Don't really want to do it that way, but I think with a piece that is going to warp some more, having any kind of any kind of a crack like that, it's just going to get worse. Okay, so it's running right through there, and that's great because that I can turn away when I take this down to the right foot size. And I don't see that anymore. You know, when I was first starting out, and I still hear it some, that people will say, "Listen to the wood; it will tell you what it wants to be." And I understand what they're saying, but I'm the artist, and I often will go into something with some idea of what I want the wood to be. But where I do find listening to the wood is important is it'll tell you where it wants to move, how it wants to move. If where there's too much pressure and it's starting to crack up, it'll tell you, no, no, sorry, I can't be that. Uh, but I think when we talk about letting the wood tell you what it wants to be, it's it's a conversation. You're having a conversation as an artist with your medium. Um, I actually love Wynton Marsalis has a great line about that, referring to jazz. The artists that are playing have a conversation together, and that conversation is the art. And I think that's true for what I'm doing. Also, this is a conversation between me and this piece of wood, um, and in that conversation, we make some art together. Just right. So I find the scraper very useful on the outside of a bowl because it takes away a lot of the lumps and bumps and eccentricities of the cut that you get um, with a gouge. Um, it's much smoother, a much smoother motion than you get with a gouge. you oftentimes get a smoother cut with a gouge. There's no denying that. Although if you use here, let me see if I can demonstrate the shear cut that you do with a scraper, and you can do this with a gouge as well. But you'll see I'm turned up a little bit so that I'm getting a shear cut along the edge. And you do get a very nice surface with that. And I think I don't think I want much other than that for the outside of this bowl. I don't know that I need it. Let me do the top here. I'll get the rest when I get to the inside. Maybe try a groove right in there. If the wood moves, this might be neat. And the way that I do a groove is I start off like this, and I lift the tool handle up, and that pivots the edge into the wood. Yeah. It works so much better if the tool was sharp. What a difference that makes. Turning that the wrong way, but I think I got away with it anyhow. Yes, I did. I just want to take a look at the profile. You look up here at the horizon, you can see the shape of the outside of the bowl. And I can see that I have still have a little lip. Let's see if I can just take that away. Better to me. So that's going to get sanded. I get questions sometimes, and you guys may be having the question as well. why I do mostly hand sanding. Um, and the simple answer is that um, when I'm hand sanding, I can actually feel the profile, and I like that. It tells me, I can when I can feel a difference. I like that, so that I know that if I need to go back and return something. Um, Also, it's like a good for me. It's like a good report card. Um, if I can hand sand it, it means that my cut was good enough that I don't need um, power sanding. You take off a lot of material with power sanding, and sometimes it's necessary on the inside, um, just because of the nature of the beast. But um, if I don't need to take off that much material on the outside, I'd rather not. So I got the foot just right. I don't always get the foot perfect. Maybe it's not perfect, but look at the space between the jaws is almost non-existent. So you won't have any kind of chuck marks when I take that chuck off of that foot. Just truing up the rim first. What I'm going to do here is get try for a little bit of a back cut in the rim. Not if I can't enter the cut properly. So that's about where I want the rim to be. It's still pretty thick. It's not a little bowl, so I don't want it to be ultra thin. But it's also somewhat wet, so I don't want it to be too thick. I want it to stay flexible. And it's also going to be thicker up here at the rim where it gets wide. That's just right. Now I'm getting a little thick in the bottom again. Because of the angle, I'm also starting to get a little bit far out from the rest. Just going to take this material away. You can do this with a scraper also, but I think it's a little more efficient to do this much with a gouge. Now I do think I'm going to come in with the scraper. This is my bowl scraper. Little bit low. Try and take small cuts with the scraper and go slowly. You always get a nicer cut when you go slowly, but it's especially true with the scraper. A little hump in the middle, still a little high. That's just right there. I think I'd like to be a little bit more undercut up here at the rim. What I'm trying to get is a little bit of a shadow line. That's it. That's all I wanted. Let me see if I can get in here with the scraper. Just trying to get a little bit of a shear cut so that I can blend those two surfaces. Good, that's it. Got to be very careful when you do that cut, or at least I do. As I often say, there's ample opportunity to screw it up. Now on the inside of the bowl, I am going to start with power sanding. Okay. This bowl has exactly what I love about turning ash. Ash has this lovely wide grain, and the inside, the in between the growth rings, sands very slightly differently than the outside, as with all wood, but finishes so nicely, and it has a really great feel to it. It doesn't feel super ridgy. It just feels like you feel a slight undulation, and that's it. And it looks so pretty. So now I'm going to let this sit. This bowl is now going to sit for a couple of days. Might go in the microwave, but I don't think it'll need to. It was pretty dead, I think, when it came down, so it was still slightly wet, but the rest of it hasn't moved much. But I'll come back in a couple of days, and we'll put some finish on it and see how much it moved. So here we are a couple of days later, and this piece has gone a bit oval, and it has gone as bowls often will. If this is where the pith was, these growth rings try and straighten out. So you see the sides go down just slightly. I'm afraid you can actually see it a little bit better in person, but if I tilt it just right, you can see how it undulates a little bit. And then it's also gone somewhat oval. This is 14 inches, which is about 36 millimeters on one side, and about 13 and a half or 34 millimeters the other way. So it's gone oval as well. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back on the chuck, and I'm just going to run some 400 grit or a 320 grit sandpaper over it again. The foot will have gone slightly oval also, so this isn't as secure a hold, so I'm not going to do anything too aggressive. I'm not going too quickly. I'm just going to knock out, when I say not too quickly, this is about 200 RPMs, 250 RPMs. I just want to knock down some of the grain that stood up in the microwave. That's it. And then it gets finished. This is Mahoney's walnut oil and beeswax. Could also just get plain walnut oil and be just fine. I actually thought about leaving this unfinished entirely, which I don't think I've ever done a piece entirely unfinished. But it certainly would be fine like that. Over time, the wood builds up its own patina between food and, handling and things like that. It gets plenty enough of a finish. But that's it.